I'm very inspired by geometry. Creating simple objects, there's so much depth and simplicity. Your mind really focuses on the entire piece as opposed to a focal point, but I really enjoy creating pieces that are thoughtfully simple. It comes down to the material, the stories in the material. I always love working with my hands and doing these random hobbies and crazy projects. When I started this one, my friends and my parents, they were like, "Oh boy, here's another one," and like very nice, not mean about it. But this one's one that stuck. I had no experience in jewelry making or being a business owner. I studied marine biology and I have a minor in music. I saw a YouTube video on someone creating a wood ring. I fell in love with the process of just everything about it. The lathe, it was really like a soothing thing to me. Um, and I'm just such a perfectionist type of person where a lot of careers just didn't work. And I was just finding something that would work for me. I knew I had the passion to do something, I just didn't know what it was. And when I saw these videos, I just kept watching them. And I bought the equipment of how to make it. And, kind of in that time realized that a business would be really fun and just kind of dove in head first. If I wanted this to work, I had to learn the things I didn't know or didn't want to know. Oftentimes I use wood and other materials like glass, and kind of some things you probably normally wouldn't associate with jewelry. The main woods I'm using are mostly pretty domestic to the US, North America. The reason I do this is because they are very sustainable, they're widely found, and I think the simple woods like cherry, maple, and walnut are just really beautiful on their own. They're very simple in a good way. These materials themselves, like wood and glass, I think they're very cool on their own. The goal is really accentuating what is already there. Like with wood, you get different grains. Every piece, even though if I create the same specifications for a piece, something made out of, for example, walnut wood, it's still going to be different, even with the exact same specification. I find a lot of joy in that because you're still creating different things, even though it's the same overall idea. There's different things you have to think about rather than using metal because wood's organic. So it's meant to decompose. How are you going to stop that decomposition process and make a piece of jewelry that not only looks good with wood, but also is going to last for a customer? Making a product that's able to be refinished if needed is important. Because I think, a quality product, if it's okay if, let's say, over time you need to refinish, but a quality product is not a throwaway product. A quality product is expected, like a nice piece of furniture. If it gets damaged, you can refinish it to what it was. The durability took about a year and a half of just constant testing, repetition. Using wood was the most challenging aspect of what I do. So a lot of my research and initial development went into how to make this jewelry that's going to last. A lot of what contributes to a strength of a full wood ring is that it's made of veneers that are laminated around the circumference of the ring, which equate to their strength. So the grain, there's no end grain showing, and the end grain oftentimes presents weak points. The grain runs around the ring as opposed to through it, so you get some more kind of streamlined design. And so when you do this bent wood technique, it creates strength in all areas of the ring. And that was a large find of how to make a wood ring durable and not going to crack when you squeeze it. And I started with just a few wood ring designs when I opened the business, and it all expanded from there. I was working in my parents' garage because I didn't have my own space to do it. I was just out there every day for 2 years, really like 10 hours a day, just, not that you should work that hard, that, that means anything, but I just was so passionate about it that it didn't feel like work. And the garage was uninsulated, so that in the winter was just brutal. And those days I'm like, I can't, but I'm like, I wanted to accelerate the process and really develop it, and I didn't stop until I had something that I could call a first, kind of prototype. I think jumping in was definitely risky, but I ended up finding, my way of doing it. I wouldn't have probably learned the same in another method. So yeah, I definitely don't regret it, even though there's a lot of times where I might have regretted things in the moment. I think the stories really developed when I started offering that I could take materials that my customers give me and incorporate them into pieces. Whether it's flowers from a wedding or sand from a beach engagement. If they tell me the story behind it and I really ingrain that story, I really think about where that, and then I translate that when I make the piece. I'm putting my story, but then they have this whole entire story they're putting into it and how that relates to my story. You get this evolving message, and I think that's really interesting. I'm the catalyst to get their story into the piece that they're going to own. I love making them one at a time. You really can internalize what goes into each piece, what you're looking for in the piece, what it means to you, what it might mean to the customer. If there's something that the customer provides with the piece, you get to really capture it. And that's why I really like working individually. There's pros and cons, but for my brand, working on a lot of the pieces individually is pretty important to me. This one actually came from a client of mine who's an avid gardener, and she found out about my brand by walking in the store, and she got really excited. Got me excited too. She's like, oh, I'm a passionate gardener. I have a bunch of flowers I would love to use in pieces. But this whole time we're just going back and forth about design and what we could do with them. But our goal is to really make the flowers visible. That's why you have this, large pendant. She wanted a stacking set of rings as well. And she brought me a lot of flowers to use. So these are the actual flowers from her garden that I dried. There are all these different varieties of flowers. Like one's gonna be this, purple, burgundy colors, a blue, and then there's a warm variety of different colors in the stacking rings. And then the pendant has all of them. So it's just kind of really nice, cohesive collection where she can wear one or all of them and it'll still look good. But it gives some options, and they all have the flowers from her garden, so she can look at that and see that, that it's her garden wherever she goes. That was a really meaningful thing for me to do, and I'm glad I was able to do it for her. And this is the type of work I love to do too. So in the beginning, I definitely got a lot of questions on what's this? Why is this so expensive? What is this? Some people think when they see simple objects, that means that it's not hard. You could look at it as this is a wooden circle with a line in it, but it's so much more than a wooden circle with a line in it. How the process to create, the process to design that and make it look thoughtfully elegant. There's a lot of work behind that. And that really changed, with my presentation and my explaining. People understand it as art first, which is so meaningful to me because it's art. I care about each and every product. So to convey that to a client's very important to me because they know they're getting a good product that's been cared for and been thoughtfully designed. And I'm having the opportunity to give that to someone who appreciates it. I'm an introvert, and being a business owner, you can't be. That's just not going to work. Unless you're, in certain ways maybe. But with what I wanted to do, I had to get out there. I had to meet people, talk to clients, talk to business owners, and that really forced me to, not be introverted. It might be uncomfortable, but it's okay, and you got to work through it because you have a bigger goal in mind. And when you have that big goal in mind, you forget about it. It still might be there, but being uncomfortable is okay. When you do these things you wouldn't normally do, it builds off itself to just become the best you can be. I did find out that I love it. I love getting out there in markets. I do them every weekend, and I love talking to clients and getting opinions, and that's really enjoyable to me. But that was unexpected. So it's really combining, this woodworking and true, jewelry making, soldering, and all these elements, and really trying to create something unique, combining the skills I've learned from each. So I really wanted to have a mix of both. I think that was really important to the brand, and just expanding. I just love doing it, and I love learning. When I'm doing this, it satisfies me in a way that other things couldn't. So to be able to do this as now a job and a career is very, very fulfilling to me. There were moments of clarity of I did this step that I couldn't do before. Definitely I was improving, slowly over time, which was kind of harder to detect until I tried to make something I tried a year ago and I could do it now. Some people come up to me, I know they're not meaning this in a bad way. I don't take it as a bad way, but they're like, oh, you're so naturally talented. It wasn't natural. It took years and consistent effort to get to where I am. Because you should have seen my first ring. I need to display it. It was terrible, and it didn't come from natural talent. It was become from years of practicing, repetition, because I knew what I wanted. So I wouldn't say I was naturally gifted. It was more of I had the determination to do what I wanted to do. I don't want that to discourage someone because they don't think they're naturally gifted to not try something. Because I was not at all, but I loved the process and I figured out a way to do it. You hear the term starving artist, right? And my goal is it doesn't have to be that way. You can make a sustainable, successful business. You might, do a lot of things you don't want to do and stuff, but I want to show that it is possible for other artists too, that you can, by branching out doing other things, it's definitely possible to still keep the passion and still have a business too.